Hello and welcome to the Paris Fintech Forum Communities Programme. I'm Elliot Gotkin, I'm a journalist and with Laurent Nisri, co-host of this exclusive video interview series produced with the support of Solaris Bank, Rise and BPI France. Now, if there's one area of finance that was ripe for fintech disruption, it's small and medium-sized businesses. And while much of the focus of late has been on alternative lenders in the space, mobile point of sales or POS systems have brought massive benefits to the sector. Well, today I'm happy to be speaking with the co-founder of one of Europe's biggest fintechs in the space. He is Marc Alexander Christ, and he joins me now. Marc, great to see you. How are things where you are?
Hi, Elliot. Thanks for having me. Things are going well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I saw that on a previous occasion at the Paris FinTech Forum, you asked the audience how many knew what SumUp was about, and I guess not as many as you were expecting did. So why don't you start by just telling us or summing up what SumUp's all about?
Sure. We're around for 9 years now. Started back in 2012 with the aim of really allowing small merchants to accept card payments. And we did so by inventing a small card reader, which by now we're actually the fourth or fifth generation of that card reader, that attaches to a cell phone and is basically very easy to allow small merchants to accept card payments. It's when you look at the incumbent in this industry, they have all the clunky Ingenico and Verifone terminals that are super expensive, difficult to install, and you have long processes to getting a terminal. Well, for us, it's more like downloading an app. The terminal arrives in the mail the next day and you're ready to accept payments. And we have quite some success with this. We're now live in 33 countries, which is the whole of Europe, Brazil, Chile, and Colombia, and the United States.
Okay, you mentioned a couple of rivals, and that was kind of coming on to my next question, which is how you differ from traditional POS companies. You mentioned Ingenico, but there are newer ones such as iZettle and Square. So perhaps you can give us a sense of how you are similar to them or different from those other companies in the space.
So how we differ more to most of the incumbents is very much that we actually charge in a pay-as-you-go model, and that the whole sign up and getting the card reader is much, much easier than that. Now, when you speak about the newer competitors like Square and iZettle, they're actually, let's say, Square is mainly active in the United States. They're also in Canada, Australia, and Japan. So we only share the UK with them as a market, where we are much more, I would say, much more successful than they are. While iZettle was sold to PayPal 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And we still see them in a couple of our markets, but they're not the main contender, I would say.
Okay, and I mean, in the space, there's been a lot of activity. We recently learned that Worldline, just after having absorbed Ingenico, is going to sell its POS terminal division. Does that mean that POS is now becoming something of a commodity, and that it's not really a key part of the payment value chain anymore?
It's the attractive piece of the payment space is having the merchant relationship and doing the acquiring services, while the hardware is just an enabler in order to make this happen. So I'm not surprised that Ingenico is selling the hardware division. We're actually doing our own hardware and building our own terminals because we haven't really found any on the market that meet our needs, just in terms of price and quality and so on. So we're actually in the business of building our own terminals.
And does that also enable you to kind of keep hold of more of the data and then gather more insights and see kind of perhaps which way the industry is going?
No, this allows us more to keep the price leadership and provide a better quality experience to the merchant, because the integration of our software platform and the terminal is just made much closer than what you could get when you buy this off the shelf.
Okay. Many people say that COVID-19 has been, the best chief digital officer for the retail industry. In the physical payment world, there's been a surge in contactless payments, and like to a mind-boggling degree. Has that been something that you at SumUp have experienced as well? Have you seen a kind of COVID boom?
Most definitely. I mean, for small merchants that don't accept card payments, it's quite impossible to operate. And we actually see a ton of merchants out there that do card payments only. And obviously, we have profited quite a lot from that development.
Can you give us a sense of the boost that COVID has brought you?
Well, we are a fast-growing company, doubling in size year over year. So we're actually pretty boosted in itself, even without COVID. But I think it will have a longer-term shift in consumer behavior changing and more people paying by card payments. So we see an easy uptake both on the number of payments per merchant, but also in terms of the absolute number of terminals sold.
And in terms of growth in e-payments and online and e-commerce and that, is that something that you can kind of benefit from as well?
Traditionally, we've been very much at the point of sale with the card reader in the physical space of the merchants. But more recently, for the last 2 years, we also have an e-commerce solution that allows merchants to basically build their own e-commerce shop and basically profit of e-commerce, which we see quite some nice uptake from our merchants. And we also came up with a number of more distant charging mechanisms where you can send the merchant can send a payment link to the consumer and pay over the distance, or vouchers and stuff like this, where we see quite some uptake.
Okay. Now, in terms of your own background, I think it's mainly in banking and finance, but I did notice that, perhaps not anymore, but at one stage at least, you had a bit of a sideline in fashion. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, that's the Wasmiyato, which is a company I founded together with Max Lemle, who today does Frogster, an AI fraud engine, in 2010-11. And the idea was basically to give small merchants, like we do at SumUp, mainly in the fashion segment, a platform where they can basically exhibit their wares and sell their wares. We tried pretty hard on this one, and also had a small financing round of $500,000, but realized after 12 to 18 months that the business model just didn't work, and then just closed down the company.
And I assume failures are obviously never something to be enjoyed, but most founders one speaks to say they were actually, they got quite valuable lessons, so it wasn't kind of a waste of time or anything. Can you give a sense of how it was for you? What was this like a valuable lesson in entrepreneurship that's kind of helped you be even better at doing what you're doing now?
It's certainly a valuable lesson. It's funny, our investors actually likened this to having paid our MBA experience, because you do learn a lot, even if your company fails, just in the whole building up a company, how to hire employees, how to manage employees, how to lead employees, and how a product evolves and how the market evolves and how it's not working. So
Right.
plenty of worthwhile learnings there.
It obviously didn't put you off being an entrepreneur and being your own boss, if you like. Was that something that you always wanted to do? Was that something that was kind of always there in your mind, that you weren't just going to go and be an accountant or a lawyer, and this was something for you?
So I'm coming from an entrepreneurial family, so I could say that that's something I always wanted to do. But I actually graduated university in 2002, so just after the dot-com bubble, the whole entrepreneurship craze and everything around entrepreneurship just kind of died. So I took the more traditional route and actually became a banker. And it is 7-8 years of banking before the Lehman crisis gave me a new window of freedom that allowed me to go down the entrepreneurial path.
And are there any kind of main takeaways, maybe your kind of top 3 rules or lessons that you've kind of learned over the years of leading successful and also unsuccessful businesses?
Top 3 lessons. So number 1, everything is possible, even if it looks super complicated. As long as you work on it and believe in it, you can get it done. The second is the importance of people. Really, the team and the people you have around you are the ones that make all the difference. And then the third one is that you should have fun along the way. If it's not fun what you're doing, you're probably doing the wrong thing and should be doing something else.
Oh, there's a good lesson for everyone. Well, don't go away, because we are going to take a very quick break, after which we're going to continue our conversation with Marc Alexander Christ, co-founder of SumUp. Don't forget, if you're not already a full member of our community, everything you need to join can be found at www.parisfintechforum.com. And now, Marc, I've got a few more questions for you. So why don't we dive a little bit deeper into your space and perhaps fintech in general? There are, different types of payment providers for different bits of finance, everything from Stripe to Shopify to WorldPay. We've already seen some mergers and acquisitions, M&A activity going on in the space, such as PayPal's acquisition of Izettle. Do you think the sector is ripe for further consolidation?
So there's certainly consolidation going on, because traditionally the payments market was a very regional or actually country-specific space. If you look at the largest payment providers in each country, there's usually $2-3 billion companies and another 20 smaller ones. And very few of them actually did this business on a cross-border basis or internationally. And obviously payment is all about scale and size. So buying up the smaller players in order to make them larger makes all the sense in the world. I mean, us ourselves, we did a merger with Pay11 back in 2016 that really helped us a lot in terms of increasing our size, but also finding a lot of efficiencies on the operating expense side to make this a very promising match.
And big tech's obviously also getting involved. Apple last year bought a payment company called Mobiwave. Many said at the time that this could be the first step towards making all Apple devices mobile POSs. Is that likely? And if so, what does that mean for companies like SumUp? Is it a risk? Is it an opportunity for you?
First of all, it's an attractive space to enter those. So also for the big tech companies, I can understand why they look at this. I would think that they come more from the consumer side, because that's where they have the relationship. So more on the card issuing side than on the acceptance side. Because if you think about Google and Apple, they don't necessarily have a contact or relationship to small merchants across the world. So for us, at least in the first phase, it will just be another payment type. So whether you enter with your MasterCard or whether your Apple phone or your Google phone is really not a difference to us, and really allows us to clear the transaction and make money on that.
But it doesn't worry you that someone with deep pockets such as Apple could be kind of muscling in on your space?
Competition is always welcome, and then the question is where their focus is. So I think between issuing credit cards towards coming into our space, yes, it's both the payment space, but I think it's a long way to go.
Right. And one of your perhaps even more famous competitors, Square, seems to be doubling down on the SME finance value chain. Is SumUp likely to tread a similar path?
On lending specifically, you mean?
Well, just in terms of being more involved with small and medium-sized businesses.
So we go down a very similar path. Obviously, we have one way to go is the whole software as a service ecosystem with like Ecommerce, invoicing, accounting, cash register, and so on. But we also offer our merchants bank accounts and credit cards to really become their number one-stop solution for finance for a small merchant. And we see from our merchants that we actually solve quite a lot of problems for them this way.
Right. I mean, globally speaking, what innovations do you think that we're likely to see in the payment space in the coming years?
So I think if you look at to Asia, there's a lot of stuff going on in the QR code space and the super apps like WeChat and Alipay that basically solve all of the customers' problems, including payment and finance. And I think we could get into such a development as well in other countries. In Europe, we've seen a number of players that tried in this space and have failed over the years. So the question is still whether there's a solution there. If you look also at the US, there's Venmo, Square Cash, and Zelle, and so on, where you can send easily money to your friends. Which to see amazing traction in the US, but also when you look at the US market, how painful it is to basically mail a check or send a check versus sending an SMS. There's a big improvement, while here in Europe, with an IBAN, I can easily send you money and don't expect such a traction from such a solution as we see in the US.
So does this kind of, in terms of innovation, where should we look for perhaps inspiration for Europe in particular, but also for the States perhaps?
I think one thing that's very interesting that's going on is real-time payments. So really to accelerate the whole payment flow. That's definitely one that will change the industry a bit. And besides this, the payment space is slow and innovation is slow, unfortunately.
Okay, well, we'll look to see how much you can change that by bringing more innovations at SumUp. But I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. So I just want to give a big thank you to Marc Alexander Christ, co-founder of SumUp, for joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
I will be back next week with another big name from the world of finance and technology. So we hope you'll be able to join us again then. In the meantime, you can keep up to date with all the exclusive interviews and content from the Paris Fintech Forum Communities Program via the website www.parisfintechforum.com. See you next time. Bye-bye.